This is Effervescent Whispers ASMR. I hope you're all doing really well. I haven't been able to upload for a little while now, and I'm sorry about that. It's the kind of same excuse that, there's real life concerns and all that sort of thing. Not concerns, but I have recently got a job promotion in the same team, and I've also been lucky enough to get accepted onto the master's program that I wanted to do. So it's been a lot of balancing work commitments and study commitments and social stuff and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of taken a bit of a backseat for the moment. But ASMR is a huge part of my life. Even just listening to it, it's huge. So I'm always really conscious to try and do these videos with kind of some regularity, even if it's only a few weeks or a few months at a time. One of my favourite, who I would consider local, whisperers local kind of geographically, is Groovy Sleep Sounds. Her name is Monica, and she does some amazing videos. So a few months ago, she did Poke Monica Go. So it was her walking around her home city, which is Manchester, I believe, in the UK. This is just an example, and she narrated her Pokemon Go, and I thought that was so brilliant. I thought, oh my god, that's genius, and the name, and yeah, it was just really cool. But I basically kind of fell in love with Monica's ASMR in her, I think it was her believe it's her 2014 Christmas/birthday haul, which is this kind of 25-30 minute video, and it is just like an ASMR haul video, but it's just so good. I'd never heard of her before, but it's easily one of my favourite ever ASMR videos. I get such kind of great tingles from it, and she did a similar one when she came back from a holiday in Spain. So if you've never checked out Groovy Sleep Sounds, I very highly recommend it. She's very cool, has great taste in music, much cooler than me. The reason I'm mentioning Monica and Groovy Sleep Sounds is that she created an ASMR film tag, which I'm gonna do for you guys, because I adore my films. I'm a huge film fan. I have sat in on several film podcasts with friends of mine who I've known for easily nearly 10 years. So yeah, I am gonna do the questions. If anybody would like to do the film tag, it is a lot of fun, from what I remember, and it's going to be very kind of on the fly because I've not had real time to check this out recently. But yeah, here we go. Here's hoping it gives you some nice tingles. Okay. So the first question is, what is your favourite 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s film? Wow. Okay. Okay, so 1960s, I think it has to be, because I'm a big film nerd, it has to be Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which was the first ever Hitchcock film I saw. I watched it in a really weird order. I remember I watched like the last 20 minutes. I caught it on Sky Movies. And it was really interesting, and I thought, oh my god, what's this? And then I connected the dots, and I realised it was the film with the shower scene and that everybody had been talking about and all that sort of thing. And I watched it, and I just was blown away by it, and I just remember watching it practically, I think easily like 3-4 times a week that summer. Yeah, I just loved it. I thought it was so cool. 70s movie. Ooh, that's a bit of a trickier one. I think if I have to pick, it has to be The Godfather, which came out in 1972. It's weird in that I'm not really a big fan of kind of what I would consider kind of mafia crime films or organised crime. Like I'm not a massive fan of like The Departed or those kind of movies, but for some reason The Godfather was just fascinating to me. I watched it with my dad, and it's one of the few films where there's quite a strong overlap, where my dad and I can both sit happily and watch the whole thing. I mean, I think he definitely prefers part 2, which I've only seen a part of, and which I am determined to kind of see. I'm even determined to see the third one, even though everybody says it's awful. But no, I love The Godfather. I read the book after I'd seen the film, and that was great as well. A lot of great films in the 70s were kind of horror films as well, and I really like my horror. So there was stuff like, what was that? There was like The Exorcist, which I've only watched one way all the way through, and I had to pick a very dark, very cold night, and I just realised watching it, and then I didn't really sleep very well later that night. But there's also stuff like Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien, which is brilliant, and Halloween, which is a classic. There's so many films I can't really pick. Okay. I think one that I've watched recently, just because I've got the cover in front of me now, that I'm thinking about it. I love. Actually, just one I think. The Omen as well, and Carrie, just two more kind of amazing horror films that I adore that came out in the 70s. And Suspiria as well. I have a huge fondness for Suspiria. It might be my most kind of rewatched, kind of adored horror movie. And I heard they're doing a remake about it, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. I mean, if it modernises it and it, kind of is a great reboot or a remake or something, I'm all up for that. I just don't want it to be like the Carrie reboot there was a couple of years back with Chloe Grace Moretz, who is a good actress. I don't mind her, but she just seemed a bit kind of not really not the best choice for the role. Yeah. Anyway, 80s movies. What is your favourite 80s film? I mean, these are all more 70s and stuff, but I love like all of the kind of big action movies from the 80s. Kind of action and horror and all that sort of thing. Oh god, if I had to pick. Well, I mentioned Alien, and Aliens by James Cameron was pretty awesome. Obviously there's stuff like, Star Wars and Blade Runner and all these incredible films. I grew up on like basically Indiana Jones, occasionally a bit of Star Wars, Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters was a big, and still is kind of a big feature in my house. Die Hard. My whole family prefers Die Hard 2, but I loved the first one, with the late great Alan Rickman. I don't know. I can't really pick a favorite 80s film. I mean, if I had to kind of just say one, I would probably go for. Okay, all right. Well, there's two that I can think of. One of which I've seen very, very recently, as last week, and which I quite liked. And one that's been a comedy kind of staple of mine for years. So the comedy staple is Airplane, which I love. I think it's a very well done spoof. And it is really funny. It's very stupid, but it's very, very funny. And the one that I only saw last week is the David Lynch film Blue Velvet, which I was very skeptical about because I haven't watched a lot of David Lynch, and I've heard he's really, really good, and I'd quite like to get into Twin Peaks at some point, but I heard Blue Velvet was quite accessible. And so I bought it on DVD and I watched it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really entertaining. I thought it was great. It was kind of it was a good balance between a coherent storyline, and then having a bit of the weirdness that I've heard Lynch is associated with, like, because I'm pretty old-fashioned in that I would much prefer a film tells a story that I can understand and follow. Rather than be entirely symbolic, and to have something that mixes both is great. It's perfect. Okay, and then favourite 90s films. Well, I was born in the early 90s, and for me, I just associate it with stuff like Disney. So like, if I had to pick, it's probably going to be Mulan, which was the first Disney film that I remember watching in the cinema, and being utterly obsessed with, to the point where I had the VHS at home back when they still had VHS. So they had the VHS. I had like not quite an audiobook version, but it was like a version on CD or tape where it told the story in like bits of dialogue, and then you had like a little narrator kind of piecing it all together, and then the songs as well. So I used to listen to that easily for most of kind of 97 and 1998, which is when it came out. But yeah, I love that, and I still love it to this day. And she's still my favourite Disney princess, because you have to take these things, seriously. But yeah, I mean, there's so many good films in the 90s. Not just obviously like the Disneys and everything, but it was a very experimental time for film and stuff. So it was a chance, because like 80s there's so many kind of staples of modern cultures now in the 80s, and everybody's always trying to make it like an 80s homage or an 80s kind of thing. And the 90s, which is kind of coming back a bit now, is about kind of individualism and kind of not being afraid to experiment with stuff. And then there was all the Y2K fear and stuff like that. So it was a really weird and interesting time. But yeah, I mean, for me, because I was a kid, I missed a lot of that until I kind of became a teenager / young adult. And so for me, it's just kind of landmarked with Disney movies. So like my mum's favourite is Beauty and the Beast, mine's Mulan, my brother loves Toy Story. Yeah. Okay, sorry. That was a very long question. I promise I will try and make the others a little bit shorter. So, question 2. Your favourite ASMR moment in a film? Oh Lord. There's quite a lot of, like, if you watch older films, I use them if I want to have a nap. And have something on in the background. A lot of the times I'll just put ASMR videos on like my tablet or my phone and fall asleep to them. But sometimes I can do it with films. So, and this is going to sound utterly bonkers, but it does work if you play Psycho from the start, because it's quite subdued. And a lot of the conversations, it's all quite soft-spoken and stuff like that. It's really kind of nice and quiet and all that sort of thing. I don't know. I have quite a few from TV shows, like odd little conversations, something that I used to just like hit on repeat and just find like that's little kind of sweet spot. Films. Anything with whispering really has always been my kind of main trigger. So, I mean, I can think of one. There's a 2005 film called Flight Plan. I think it's 2007 actually, with Jodie Foster, and basically it's like The Lady Vanishes by Hitchcock, and so she plays like a plane engineer who's on a plane, and her daughter disappears mid-flight. And she starts looking for her and gets really panicked, and the other passengers don't think. You think she's having a breakdown. And there's a couple of moments in that film. So there's a moment where a psychologist on the plane is trying to talk to Jodie Foster's character. I think her name's Ryan. I think it was originally written for a guy, and they realised it can work with a female lead just as well, which is awesome. But yeah, there's a moment when they're just talking and it's very soft spoken and everything, and that's really nice. And then there's a better moment later on once they've revealed kind of the big twist, and there's two of the characters speaking to each other, and it's very kind of hushed tones and soft spoken, and it's only about a minute and a half long, but I get I even thinking about it now, I am starting to get little kind of chills and triggers from it. It's a very kind of ASMR scene, even though the actual language of it is quite charged and quite dark and violent. There's no physical violence or anything, so it's not that weird, but it's just kind of the cadence, everything is very kind of positively triggering. Question 3. Your favourite dialogue scene? I don't know. I mean, I think there's so many kind of good, iconic kind of dialogue scenes. I mean, the one that springs to my mind is... I was going to say Pulp Fiction, but then the part I'm thinking of is actually a monologue from Jules, which is the Ezekiel speech. But that's not actually really a dialogue. I'm just thinking. One film I did see earlier this year is the Michael Mann film Heat, and the diner scene in that is phenomenal. It is utterly brilliant, so I think I'm going to go with that instead. Yeah, it's so good. Question 4: your favourite set in a film, and I presume this means like a physical set. I didn't used to be that fussed about sets growing up. I used to be much more kind of like visual stuff. As a teenager, I used to think kind of the bigger and better spectacle, and used to be impressed by the CGI and everything. But as I'm getting older, I appreciate the kind of the directors and the producers who make proper sets for films now, and it's not just green screen. So the one that comes to mind that I saw last October is Crimson Peak, because I love Guillermo del Toro. I think he's brilliant. I think he's a genius. And the set is of the Victorian house, because it is kind of Victoriana setting, and it's got but when you first walk into the house, it's an incredible set, and it's got like this beautiful kind of sky blue turquoise wall on one end, which looks kind of out of place, but it doesn't in a way. And the whole thing with the staircase and everything just looks incredible. And then if we're going back even further, even something like the house in Gone with the Wind, it's because it made me think of staircases and Scarlet O'Hara and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. Question 5. Funniest comedy. I've mentioned a few already, but there are some films that are funny, but I watch them for the different reasons, if that makes sense. So I watch like Legally Blonde, but I don't really watch it for the comedy. I watch it if I need a mood boost, and I need to kind of think, okay, I'm gonna, be the best person that I can be because Elle Woods can do it and all that sort of thing. Funniest comedy. I've got two, and I believe, I think one's from the 70s and one's from the 80s. One of them I watched last night for the first time, and which I thought was really funny. Kind of brilliant, so brilliantly funny, and that's Young Frankenstein, which is a Mel Brooks film, and I bought it because recently Gene Wilder's passed away, and I've seen a few of his films. I bought Blazing Saddles a few months ago off the recommendation of a friend, and I thought that was really funny, and I need to rewatch that soon. But Young Frankenstein is, I prefer Young Frankenstein in some ways. I think it's kind of, it revels a lot in kind of the horror tropes, which I love. And it's so kind of daft and silly and kind of good-hearted, and I just really enjoyed it, and it made such a kind of brilliant impression on me last night that it's one of those films where, walking around today and doing weekend stuff, I was there just going, I could easily just rewatch that, and I would enjoy it. The other film is one that I've loved for quite a few years now, and I have loved it, and this is a weird story, but I have loved it ever since I first saw it New Year's Eve 2010, so it's nearly 6 years ago now, and it is the movie Clue, which is a bit of an odd choice because it is just the movie adaptation of the board game Clue, and a lot of people think that's quite a weird choice for a comedy, but it has an incredible cast. It has, Tim Curry and Madeline Kahn and, Christopher Lloyd and all these brilliant actors in it. And it starts off not that funny. It's not one of those films where it's kind of like, a gag in the first minute and it kind of builds and builds and builds. But the minute the characters start getting introduced, it is really funny. It is kind of endlessly funny, and I can easily watch it 3, 4, 5 times in a row, with the different endings and everything. And I think it is just kind of the fact it's a cult classic, I hope, kind of speaks for it a bit. But it is really funny. But then I also quite like again, really random one, but I saw Bad Neighbours 2 in the cinema a few months ago with my brother, because the first Bad Neighbours, or Neighbours as it's called, I think, in America, was okay. I really preferred the second one, because it was more... It's strange to say this about comedy, but it was kind of more good-hearted, and it was more positive than the first one. And it had a better message, and it was just all around. It was like the writers and directors had gone, okay, so we could actually say something good here, and we could have like a nice message, and they went for it, and I really enjoyed it, and I love the cast. So yeah. Question 6: your favourite meal people eat in a film? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, my favourite, like I used to get a bit of an ASMR kind of trigger from... There's a scene in The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, which is the third and kind of last Lord of the Rings film. And Billy Boyd, who plays Pippin, is singing this really kind of mournful song over like a montage of riders kind of going to meet their fate. And Denethor, who is played by the wonderful actor John Noble, is sat and he's just eating. And I used to get such triggers off that, and I still enjoy that as like an eating scene. Because it's that kind of hunger, that kind of visceral kind of, you're just like starving, so you don't really care about proper manners or anything, so you're just eating with your bare hands, and, that sort of thing. Yeah, I'd probably go with that, because I don't think there's many... Oh no, I take that back actually. There is, I watched My Dinner with Andre a few months ago, and I quite enjoyed that. So I'm not quite sure if that counts as like a scene, because it is basically kind of very ASMR, because it is just two guys talking. I'll probably put that in the dialogue category as well. It's two guys talking, it's very deep and everything, and they are kind of eating while they're doing it. So I do enjoy that. Question 7: your favourite music score from a film? I love instrumental music from movies and stuff, but I really like one that can kind of vary. So like I'll download and I'll pick certain tracks from random soundtracks from films I've watched, but there's two that are sticking out in my mind because they can kind of vary. So there are soundtracks which are kind of big and kind of loud and aggressive, and they're great for action movies and horror scores and stuff like that. And then there are ones that are kind of more ambient and subdued, and they're great pieces for like if you want to meditate or sleep or do whatever. The two I'm thinking of that I love and easily could just listen to on their own or in their respective films. The first is Hans Zimmer's Angels and Demons score from 2009, I want to say, which is brilliant. It's only 9 tracks long, but it is brilliant because you do have kind of the pulse pounding tracks, and then you have these... It's this gorgeous instrumentation that runs throughout. It is kind of classic Hans Zimmer, but it's very restrained in a sense, and I think it works. And there's these gorgeous themes running through. There's tracks like, I think it's H2O and 503, which are beautiful. 503 in particular, I think it's the last track, and it's the last piece of music in the film. They're both utterly gorgeous, very cinematically kind of radiant. I do love them. The second soundtrack I'm thinking of, because I did fall head over heels in love with this film in 2013, and it's Stephen Price's Gravity score, which is brilliant, and it's so emotive, and it's so... It's going to sound like a silly thing, but it does its job so well. A lot of soundtracks and a lot of music can overtake, the actual performances, which is a real shame, because then it takes away from the film as a whole, but this kind of really highlights the journey of the characters in the film. And there are these brilliant kind of electronic-y, dangerous sounding, perilous tracks, which are brilliant. I think one's called Shenzhou, which I think believes the name of one of the Chinese satellites in the film. And then you have the actual title track, Gravity, which to this day still gives me like goosebumps. And he deserved the Oscar he won for that score. It was absolutely incredible. So yes, I would go with those two. But there are tracks kind of from here, there, and everywhere. But those two actual kind of scores are the best ones that I can think of. Question 8. Which actors' films have you binged the most? I don't know. I mean, if we're being technical, the ones who I've binged the most of is probably someone like Audrey Hepburn, who is one of my favourite actresses and someone I love kind of wholeheartedly. Because I watched her in Wait Until Dark in 2010. And it was the first film of hers I'd ever seen. I didn't see, Roman Holiday or Breakfast at Tiffany's or anything like that. And then I basically was ill for a while. And then when I came back, I had to recuperate for a bit. And so what I did was I went into my local HMV when I was feeling up to it and bought a 5 DVD box set, which I still have now. It's one of my most kind of treasured DVD collections. And it has... see if I can get this right. So it's Roman Holiday, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Sabrina, Paris When It Sizzles, and Funny Face. Kind of 5 of her biggest films. And I watched them all, and I still regularly watch them. But I binged them all 5 films in about 2 days. So I guess technically she's the one who I binged the most of. I don't know if she's the actor I've seen the most films I've been told, though it might be someone like Tom Hanks, who I love. I think he's brilliant. I think he's such a cool guy. I don't know. Let's go with Audrey Hepburn. Let's go on. But I'm very kind of cautious with her because I know there's only a limited number of films out there of hers kind of left. So I'm trying to kind of eke them out a bit. I do want to watch them all eventually, but there'll come a point where there's only one film left, and I want to savour it in a way because obviously she's gone. So yeah. Anyway, question 9: which director's films have you binged the most? In a short space of time, it's probably Tarantino. I was a very typical 17-year-old who discovered Tarantino because I'd seen the Kill Bills when I was relatively young and thought they were very cool, but I didn't until I kind of got until I got my hands on an actual job when I was a student and everything. I couldn't really afford a lot of the DVDs I wanted, and it was then that I bought stuff like Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown and films like that, and then I watched Reservoir Dogs in sixth form. So I binged all that in about a 1 month period, and I do still enjoy them to this day. But if we're talking whose I've seen most of, then it's probably going to be Alfred Hitchcock. I'm a huge fan of his, even though I can kind of accept the fact that he was kind of a twisted individual, and that he did some really messed up stuff. Yeah, it's going to be him, and everyone has a favourite, and my favourite, and it remains one of my favourite films to this day, is Rear Window, 1954. Question 10: a character that you love. Oh Lord. Oh God, I don't know. I don't know. I love lots of like characters in films, but I can't really think of. I don't know. Okay. I don't know if there's like a one that I love, but one who I saw in cinemas, kind of fairly recently. I am gonna go with Rey from Star Wars: The Force Awakens because Daisy Ridley is awesome, and she completely made the character her own. Yeah, I mean, in one film, like I'm not a huge kind of like my best friend. She's really a Star Trek person, and I'm kind of by default a Star Wars person because I've not really seen Star Trek apart from the reboot films, and an odd episode here and there. And I did grow up and I have seen all the Star Wars movies, and I really, really enjoyed Force Awakens. And I think Rey is kind of the hero that we need in these dark times. She is awesome, and there's like the hero moment towards the end in the lightsaber battle. I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. But there's a moment where something looks like it's going to happen and then it doesn't, and it's a big kind of hero triumphant moment. And I remember just watching it as other people cheered, and I was just like, okay, I need to protect this. I need to protect this character. So yeah, I'll go with Rey. Question 11: a character that annoys you. Oh god, I mean, there's lots of characters that annoy me, but generally they are kind of, they're usually kind of villains, and they usually don't meet in the comeuppance anyway. So I'm not that fussed, to be honest. Question 12: your favourite bad guy. I love, for sheer kind of camp villainy. I don't think she's my favourite, but I do really like her. There's Maleficent in 1959's Sleeping Beauty, who is pretty awesome. I think she's an excellent kind of villainess. Yeah, she's awesome. She's really cool. And then I guess technically someone like Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs is so charismatic and evil, and he's amazing. Question 13: a film you can watch over and over and over again, and over and over and over. Okay, I can't pick one, so I'm just going to list a few. So there's, for example, like Clue, Legally Blonde, Attack the Block, pretty much any of the Audrey Hepburn films I've seen, Mad Max Fury Road, Cloverfield, Psycho, Rear Window. Yeah, quite a few films actually. Looking back on it, I'm kind of a sucker for an old film as well, so I can easily just put a black and white film on, and then I have to rewatch it because I usually nod off because they have all that nice soft kind of ASMR dialogue. Question 14: your favourite film you watched as a child. It is still Mulan. I grew up with James Bond films as a kid though as well, so I used to love we used to watch them pretty much every Saturday and Sunday. We used to pick a couple on a Sunday and watch them, and so they're pretty deeply ingrained as well. But yeah. Question 15: your favourite bed in a film. That is an awesome question. I don't know actually. That's bad, isn't it? I should have a favourite bed in a film. I don't know. I suppose just one that looks really comfy. I will go with some really nice beds in like kind of vintage period pieces. So like I'm a big, massive kind of Pride and Prejudice fan. That's another one I can always kind of watch over and over again. Is the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. I had never seen that film until about a year ago, and then I watched it, and I am completely besotted by it, completely and wholeheartedly. That and Troop Beverly Hills, which you cannot get on DVD, and I can only have as a digital, like a YouTube Google Play one. But it's worth every penny. That's gold as well. But no, I will go with like one of the canopy beds in Pride and Prejudice or something, because you can always choose one like 2001: A Space Odyssey, the weird kind of bed in that, but it doesn't look that comfy, to be honest. Question 16: your favorite animated film? I don't know. Because there's obviously quite a few Disney films and there's stuff like the Shrek films, DreamWorks, all that sort of thing. Actually, no, I've got one. There's a film called Persepolis, and I said Persepolis then, it's not, it's Persepolis, which is based on kind of an autobiographical graphic novel by Marjan Satrapi, and she's she's an Iranian woman who grew up in the middle of the conflict there in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and it was really interesting to watch, because there were a couple of films that came out then. There was Persepolis, and there was see if I can remember the name of it. Waltz with Bashir, yeah, which is another war movie, but it's done a little bit differently. Yeah, but no, I love Persepolis, and I think I really enjoy watching that because, again, I can just rewatch it over and over again. But I think because it comes from such a personal place, and it's one person's story about a conflict that I didn't know anything about, and I still don't know a huge amount about. So it's really interesting, and I recommend that kind of everybody should watch it and kind of be educated a little bit. Question 17: the best film you saw in the cinema. The one that comes to mind. Well, okay, there's two. So the first one, which I've mentioned briefly, is Gravity, and I was really intrigued by it because I love Alfonso Cuarón, because I saw him, because I've watched him, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which was awesome, and then he did Children of Men, which I thought was really interesting, and brilliant, and he basically took a fair amount of time off, and then he came up with Gravity, and I love the idea of it's just Sandra Bullock and George Clooney in space. It's kind of innovative filmmaking techniques, and the reviews were amazing. They were saying, this is kind of what cinema should be about and everything. So I watched it, and I don't really like 3D. I'm not a big 3D person. But yeah, it blew me away, and it was worth paying for the 3D and everything, and it made it such an emotive experience. The other favourite film that I saw, which again I've mentioned again, is Mad Max Fury Road. I did not grow up with Mad Max. I still have not really seen the 3 previous Mad Max films, but it doesn't matter. I was intrigued by it because it was randomly across my Twitter. This happens a lot in my life. I'll randomly read a comment and I'm like, oh, okay, so this has become somewhat big in my life. Was the idea that this new Mad Max film, which I'd heard a bit about, was kind of a feminist thing, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of intrigued. And then it was an article in Vanity Fair saying, oh, the fact he hired Eve Ensler, I think it's Ensler. I'm really sorry if I've mispronounced it. The writer of the Vagina Monologues had come on to kind of help the actresses playing the wives kind of shape the characters, as kind of survivors of sexual abuse and everything. And then I was really intrigued, and then I watched the trailer for it, and I read kind of a bit about the film and everything, and I became really interested about it and really excited. And then when I saw it, I was kind of blown away. I think, it's in a weird way, it's the most visual film I've ever seen. You could just have it as like a silent movie and you would still understand what it's about. And it's just, even watching it to this day, the action is incredible. I love the kind of abundance of female characters in it, and the fact they all get to do different things. Like, a lot of my friends saw it and they were like, oh yeah, Furiosa's awesome, and then I was like, yeah, Furiosa, and then everybody else as well. So like the Vuvellini and the wives, I adored the 5 wives. I thought they were just so cool and interesting. So yeah, so it's Gravity and Mad Max Fury Road, basically. 18, your favourite snack to eat during a film? I sometimes do. But the other problem is that if I eat like something like chocolate or popcorn, that I'll want to drink. And then if I want to drink, there's the likelihood or possibility that I may need to use the bathroom during the film. And I really don't want to do that, so I try to kind of abstain. But if I am going to pick a snack or something, it is probably going to be like maybe like some ice cream. I love ice cream, so I might treat myself to a bit of ice cream then, because it's not, you don't really want a drink with it, because it's kind of its own drink as it melts. 19, your guilty pleasure film. I don't believe in guilty pleasures. Not anymore. I used to be really weird about it. I used to kind of hide it and be a bit ashamed, but now I'm just at the stage of screw it. So I have quite a few that I will kind of shamelessly love, no matter what people think. So it's stuff like Pride and Prejudice 2005 or Jupiter Ascending from last year, which I love so much. It is such a good film. It's trash, but it's amazing at the same time. Like I've said before, Legally Blonde, or I don't know, there's like random, like there's a film called Angela, which is, or Angel A in French, which is, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's so brilliant and nuts. And then, for like actiony stuff, there's so many, guilty pleasure films out there. You just need to kind of accept that you like what you like and just kind of own it, because once people realise that you're not going to be kind of intimidated by it, or you're not going to be kind of kowtowed, they just accept it. Question 20, your comfort film. It used to be something like Psycho, or like an old movie, and still a lot of them are. So like if I really need to like get to sleep and I need to set the mood, it might be something like And Then There Were None, like the old 45 version of that, or I don't know, just something nice. A Brief Encounter used to be as well, because it's all quite soft and quite nice and ASMR-y, and it's just it's all beautiful. Now though, if I like need restoring in a sense, it really is the Pride and Prejudice 2005 version, because it's beautiful and the cast is incredible and the music's great, and it does match this day. Whenever like Lizzie and Darcy fight or spar, I'm just thrilled by it, because all in my head I'm just saying, you two are clearly falling in love. But yeah, I love it. It's so good. 21, a film that's not the same unless you watch it with a specific person. Ooh. I kind of have this. Me and my best friend share a love of Marvel films in that we you know there are certain characters that we each respectively root for, but then we're the only people that we see other Marvel films with, because we both get that kind of nerdy obsession stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much them. Like I will watch Captain America the Winter Soldier at like on Netflix on my own, and it won't really be the same. So yeah, stuff like that. 22. Your favourite book turned into a film. My favourite book was turned into a film, and I wasn't super kind of down with it. My favourite book, for, again, no guilty pleasure, is Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day by Winifred Watson, which is such a happy, joyful, kind of redemptive book that I just love it completely wholeheartedly. To the fact where I have it saved as like a digital copy here and a digital copy there and a physical copy and a copy in like a different language and all that sort of thing, so that I can just keep. I can just hold on to it for the rest of my life, because I never want to let it go. My favourite book turned into a film. I am going to choose a slightly obscure choice, which is the Dan Brown film Angels and Demons, which I have mentioned soundtrack-wise, but this is going to sound really weird, but I think it actually works better as the film than it does the book, because the book, and I did enjoy the book, it strips away a lot of the unnecessary stuff and a lot of the weird stuff. So like in the book there's a romantic subplot that just isn't addressed in the books, in the film, which is awesome. They change some of the fates and everything of the characters, which is awesome. They strip back a lot of the unnecessary plot stuff, because Dan Brown is great. He can be a great kind of fiction writer, but he does he loves his kind of unnecessary plot contrivances, and I think Angels and Demons works very well as a solid kind of thriller, and I think it's a very good adaptation. Question 23. Your favourite black and white film? Very hard to pick. Will probably, if it's not something like, I don't know, Psycho, it might be something like I don't know. I love too many black and white films to count, like The Shop Around the Corner, Miracle on 34th Street, The Man Who Knew Too Much, the 34 version, which is brilliant. I will go with The Lady Vanishes, the is it 30, 23? Okay, alright, if not The Lady Vanishes, like the original version, then Metropolis, Fritz Lang, which is brilliant sci-fi. Oh, speaking of, question 24, your favourite sci-fi? So, it would probably be, like, Metropolis in the 20s is amazing, and it inspired all kinds of stuff, but I also love, like, I don't know, Blade Runner, which I recently got into, and that was pretty awesome. Stuff like, I don't know, Alien and all the kind of sci-fi horror stuff's pretty cool as well. I love how this is converging, but there's a sci-fi guilty pleasure, which weirdly is Michael Bay, who I'm not a huge fan of, and it's called The Island, and it's like Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson and, the late great Michael Clarke Duncan and Sean Bean and Jimon Hunsu and everything. And it's basically like a Logan's Run THX 1138 ripoff, and it is brilliant. It's basically about clones who, two of them become self-aware. They're living in this underground kind of facility where everything's, white and clean and pristine, and they become self-aware and discover, the outside world, which they were told was contaminated, and it's not. It's just the future, and I love that. The action's great, and it's just a bright, fun summer movie, and it has one of my favourite ever pieces of instrumental music in it as well, so it's pretty good. 25. Oh, it's the last question as well. Okay, 25. Your favorite all-around film you can watch anytime in any mood. Okay, I am. Ooh. Okay, so I've talked about Pride and Prejudice 2000, the 2005 one, which I can watch anytime and feel really good about. I can watch Troop Beverly Hills, which is a little-known Shelley Long film from the late 80s, early 90s, which I can watch at any time. Legally Blonde, Miss Congeniality, so they're all kind of lighter films. But then on the darker side, I do and can watch stuff like Suspiria, or you know, I'm really trying to think. I mean, I really can watch stuff like, you know, like Clue and Psycho and Rear Window and, you know, all these brilliant kind of black and white films. But then I can watch Mad Max and, you know, The Island and Attack the Block, and, you know, I mean, it's weird in a sense, because there are so many films where you can just be like, oh well, I can just watch this again and again and again. I mean, I liken it to in the movie 2012, which is like a disaster movie by Roland Emmerich. There's the idea of, oh, okay, if you were like really rich or really lucky, then, you know, you might end up getting kind of saved and placed on this kind of fancy ark boat, whatever, if the world came to an end. And so it's kind of the idea, what would you take with you? And aside from obviously stuff like, you know, my family and my dog and books and clothes and all that sort of thing, when it came to like DVDs and stuff, I think there would have to be like a registry of like, okay, we've got enough copies of Star Wars, and, you know, films that everybody has, and it'd be like picking the really obscure ones, or it'd be picking the ones where you're like, I need this to survive with me. There is no way I can get through without this film. And I think those are the kind of films you can watch at any time, because there are films which you can acknowledge are amazing, but you might just watch it once and you're like, oh, okay, well, you know, I can acknowledge that was great, but I will never watch it again. So like I watched so basically after Oscars I try to go to like HMV or something, which is a CD DVD game superstore thing in the UK. And they always have offers on with like, Oscar winners, you know, three DVDs for £10, or, you know, 5 for £20 or something like that. And I think it's really funny that, you know, like a great example, you know, I'm rambling a bit here, but, you know, if you guys know me, you know I always ramble. There's a film called Beasts of the Southern Wild, and it got a lot of attention because the lead in it, Quvonjane Wallace, she was like I don't think she was the youngest, she might have been like the second youngest person to ever have been nominated for the lead actress Oscar, or it was something like that. She was very young, she was only about 8 or 9. And so I watched it and I was like, oh, this is a great film and everything. But then I realised once I'd watched it, I was like, okay, it's great, but I won't ever watch it again. So there are some films that I think are a bit like fine dining. It's undeniably good, but you don't want, you know, it might well be like, oh no, I can acknowledge objectively it was great, but I don't really want to eat that, or I don't want that in my life, that sort of thing. Or it might be that, you know, if there's a film where it is kind of like your guilty pleasure kind of junk food, where you're like, I know other people don't like this, but I can't get enough of it, or it really fills something for me, or it, you know, it helps me feel this way or this. So yeah, I don't know. I may think of a list at some point, but yeah, I don't think I have time. So yeah, that is the tag done. I'm really sorry for rambling quite a bit. It is a really, really long, long video. I'm looking at the time now, and I can see that it's we're about 10 seconds away from a full hour, which I can't believe that happened. And yet, in some ways, I can. So yeah, I mean, if you want to do this tag, please feel free. Although you might want to be a bit more prepared than I was, because I just did it completely off the fly, which resulted in an hour long ASMR experience. Hopefully you'll all be asleep by now. And I hope it's helped, and that you've found it kind of interesting, or that you've thought, oh well, I might give that film a try, or I might try this kind of film score or something like that. So yeah, I hope that's kind of worked out for you. Alright, I am going to say good night, because I'm recording this quite late at night, and it's really, really, it's really quite late, and it's really quite cold. So yeah, I'm gonna go to bed now, but I really hope this has proved to be useful for you, and it's provided plenty of tingles. Okay, I'll speak